All right, we got one more topic to discuss, and this one is totally free for all. So everybody, take your best shot here. It's called Wrestling Shit List, and it is brought to you by Elite City Gaming. So we'll start with Seth because I want to start with Seth because Seth and I have an interesting opinion on this. Wrestling Shit List is a discussion I like to have with wrestling fans all the time, whether I know you for a long time or whether I've known you for 10 seconds, because there's no wrong answers. Wrestling Shit List is, simply put, your top 5 biggest pieces of shit in wrestling all time. And that can be there for any reason at all. So, let's start with Seth. Seth, your number 5 biggest piece of shit in wrestling history is?
My number 5 piece of shit is JBL.
Oh, JBL. Brian,
Gibbles
your number 5 biggest piece of shit in wrestling history is?
Oh Jesus! Are we ranking like from worst to or worst? I don't even know how that's works.
To very worst.
What do you mean? Okay, all right. I'll do it something easy. Chris Benoit.
Wow. Okay.
Oh, that's
Oh man, that really kind of makes the rest of our list look like shit because you picked someone who's actually a
Is
piece
this not
of
what
shit.
we're doing? I
No,
thought this is what we're doing.
That is exact, Brian. You're doing a great job. That's exactly what we're doing.
Let's start there.
Oh man, Brian, you're killing it. I love it.
he was almost number 1 on my list, but he's not. And it's sad
Don't
to
spoil
say
it.
that I won't, but I didn't have a murderer on the list. That's definitely
I really overlooked that detail, the murder
yeah.
thing. I really didn't do my homework on that one.
I can't watch a Benoit match.
What's that? You can't watch them?
I cannot watch them.
It is a little weird. I will not lie. It is very weird to watch them. So, all right, I'll give you my number 5, which is a little bit less than Chris Benoit, but it is Shawn Michaels.
Yeah.
All right, so does anybody want to talk about any of those top 5s? Although I think Brian definitely won that round.
Yeah.
Well, keep in mind, I'm not ranking mine. I'm just doing 5 in general that I can
fine.
put out there. Like if I say something else, I can't say, oh well, yeah, this guy was a murderer. But my next choice,
Let me
he's a
tell you
scumbag.
about
Like,
Renee
that's not how that
Dupree
works.
real quick, though. I like it. I like it a lot. I wish we had done it like that. But all right, Seth, your number 4 biggest piece of shit in wrestling of all time is
Shawn Michaels.
Shawn Michaels. We're on the same page. Brian, your number 4 biggest piece of shit in wrestling history is
Hulk Hogan.
Oh, that's gonna make people mad. But you just wait, people. My number 4 biggest piece of shit in wrestling history is JBL. Seth, your number 3 biggest piece of shit in wrestling history is
Big sexy Kevin Nash.
Oh, big sexy. Brian, your number 3 biggest piece of shit in wrestling history is
Triple H.
Oh,
Oh.
I want to hear about this one because I think I understand why you would put him there, but I want you to tell me. I want to know.
All right. You want me to do it now? Or you
Yeah,
want me to
go
name
ahead.
yours?
Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
Oh, I mean, if you think about it, his whole career has always been how he's the game and he is the number 1 wrestling superstar that managed to stay in the business and be on top this whole time. But, the only reason he is on top is because he's always put himself there and always fought anyone who's ever tried to come across him. And then now he's
going over.
Yeah. And he's just dating the boss's daughter. Like he's a guy that just got a rocket ship put on his back afterwards. And he has this quote unquote legacy, but we really look at it and everything that's happened in his career, like, is he really that good? Has he been really that entertaining? Or is he just always been a constant? Like, is he the guy that should have went against Sting at that WrestleMania? Like, is he the dream match that everyone had in mind? Like, no, who had a dream match of Sting and Triple H? No one had that. But yeah, so he put himself in there. The thing with him and Booker T, you look at that
Don't get
whole
me started
feud.
on that.
Like, should it have gone the way it did, or should have Booker T been a WWE champion and had, quite frankly, been the only African American WWE champion in their history? Like, should that have happened? Well, it didn't. And that all goes back to Triple H.
So do you get conflicted when you watch NXT then?
See, and that's the thing. I'm not a guy that watches week by week. I watch the takeovers. So at the very beginning with him looking all badass and posing, like I think that's kind of ridiculous. I kind of laugh at it. But I do know like everything else that comes after him is fantastic. So that first 10-minute block, maybe I'll get up, I'll have a beer, go get something to snack on, I'll come back, and I just kind of look beyond that.
Look beyond the game, man. You can't look beyond me. I'm the game.
He'd be more true to character if he changed the sledgehammer to a shovel.
Well, there was that one poster that got photoshopped. I think it was Payback 2014 or Extreme Rules 2014, one of the two, where Triple H was holding a sledgehammer and they changed it to a shovel. All right. My number 3 biggest piece of shit in wrestling history is... Are you ready for this one, Brian?
Go ahead.
Goldberg.
Do
I need to defend that?
That's a very polarizing figure in wrestling, and as a guy that runs a WCW-centric site and posts a lot of Goldberg content and sees how Facebook blows up every time I do anything related to Goldberg, yes, I know what your stance is.
So, I will give just a brief synopsis. You know everything you just described about Triple H?
Yes.
That's a Goldberg with less talent. Goldberg was a big guy. He was exciting. I understand why people liked him. If I was booking a show, I'd probably book him in it. But he's a piece of shit because everything was always about Goldberg. He didn't want to lose. He didn't want to he didn't want to do the job for anybody. Whenever somebody was supposed to go over him, it always had to be something like a taser or hit him with a car. He ruined WWE storylines for like a year by breaking his fist in a car window. You know, I mean, the guy was reckless. He hurt people. I understand Goldberg, but I think he's a piece of shit.
But is that because of Goldberg, or is that because of the people around him that enabled him and put him in that spot?
Considering that his behavior continued into his WWE run, there's something there for me.
Yeah.
I kind of agree with Brian, though. I mean, I think, Scott Hall was one of the first people to drive him around.
Scott Hall is also a piece of shit. He's up there, but he's not quite on my list. I'm spoiling my list a little bit.
When you have the click, talking in your ear, they're going to manipulate you if you're fresh in the business.
I'm not saying it's all Goldberg, but you can't, I'm not going to shake the responsibility from a full-grown adult to avoid peer pressure.
But I want to say that Goldberg walked into WCW with an agent, and I think his agent, Barry Bloom, was also someone that represented Hogan. So you basically had Hogan looking over his shoulder trying to protect Goldberg as well, because once he saw that starting to catch on, he gets in his mindset, like, this is the money. I'm going to try to...
didn't want to lose to Goldberg either.
Well, of course not, unless he can get his comeuppance, which eventually happened, considering Goldberg only held a title once.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I understand Goldberg, and I'm not going to put it all on Goldberg, but
I completely understand, because himself and his interviews and his personality, it does rub people the wrong way. I remember listening to him on Colt Cabana's show, where Colt is 100% fanboy, want to know, hey Goldberg, do you remember when this happened? And Goldberg's like, oh, why would I remember that? And you go, oh yeah,
that was a pretty good Goldberg, by the way.
It's like he is an asshole, but I can see that. I do see that, but I do have a bit of a fanboy in me that really likes him, so I can see why people put him on that list.
All right.
Right.
Oh, go ahead, Seth.
I agree with you, because I do remember that Cult podcast, and he was asking him questions, and I don't know, it was just, he was like interviewing a piece of wood. He's just, and I don't know if either of you guys had watched the 24 on Goldberg.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, he's doing it. He's midway through his run. Oh, this sucks. This is hard work. Well, dude, you're 50. Like, come on.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. Brian, we talked about that last run that Goldberg had a while back, and yeah, I mean, Seth is right on there. But all right, let's move to the number 2. Seth, number 2 biggest piece of shit in wrestling history is
Hulk Hogan.
Oh man, there's a big name. Brian, number 2 biggest piece of shit in wrestling history is
Abdullah the Butcher.
Oh wow, that's good. Holy shit, is that good? Because that guy was running around giving people hepatitis and shit.
Oh,
that's a really good pick, Brian. Man, you are on point. You are killing it.
Cowboy Bob did the same thing.
Yes, he did. He did do that. Man, Abdullah the Butcher. That is so out of left field. I love that. I love that pick. That is so good.
That totally took me off guard, but that's awesome.
I think Brian's list is winning.
Yeah.
All right, my second biggest piece of shit in wrestling history. Are we ready for this one, boys? Bret
Sure.
Hart.
You know what? I can understand that.
Brian, what about you?
Defend yourself there. I want to hear
right.
this.
Do you know how hard it is to piss off Undertaker? So I don't know if you guys have ever heard the story about. I think it was right before the screw job when they're coming up with ways to get the title off of Bret, and that makes Bret look good, and he's refusing everything, and they're coming back with this, and he's refusing it. Every time I can't even remember who told this story. One of the wrestlers was telling this story about Bret Hart's in the locker room going up to somebody like, I don't think it's good for my character to lose that way. I think it's got to be this way. And Undertaker, after like 10 different occasions of him going, I don't think that's good for me, just got up and threw like water across the room and was like, bitch, it's not always about you. And that was kind of my big problem with Bret Hart through the years, was everything he did was about Bret Hart. If he won, it was about, did it make Bret Hart look good? If he lost, well, does it make Bret Hart look good? If he, did some kind of shenanigans, well, does Bret Hart not look like an idiot after this? And so, and then, for years, I understand why he wasn't happy with WWE, obviously, but for years after, just needlessly taking out wrestlers, taking out guys, using his platform recklessly to just shit on people that didn't need to be shit on for years, and just doing nothing good for the business for the better part of his life after wrestling.
I want to say it was Conan's show that's got a really good story, like way back in the day on MLW, when Bret was in Nitro. He was on WCW Nitro, and Luger was booked to go over Bret on a Monday Nitro, and Luger was so ecstatic because he knew for a fact that Bret must be absolutely livid, because Bret Hart would be okay with losing on pay-per-views because, those are the quote-unquote bigger matches, but more people would be watching Nitro. And to have Luger go over him on a Nitro, he'd be pissed about that, but, so they wrote it that way, and Luger was so ecstatic. Oh, my God, I'm going to get one over on Bret. He was just giddy. So, yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so that's my big reason for putting him on there, because it just, that's his whole life. That's his Bret Hart's legacy is, I was really good because I didn't let anybody else be really good around me. So
yeah, the whole Montreal thing, I mean, Shawn Michaels does bear some of the blame, but Bret does too. I mean, you got, I don't know, the whole situation. I mean, wrestling fans know about that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's why they're both on my list.
Yeah.
They're both pieces of shit. Who would have thought? All right, we get down to the big boys. Now, we can either do this where we give our number ones, or I can read some fan-submitted lists. You guys tell me what you'd rather do.
I think do some fan submitted,
Okay,
and then ours last, but that's just my idea.
Yeah, go ahead.
All right, let's do it that way, because I do think it's good to get our audience in here and let them participate before, we sort of go off on our own little runs. So let me dig in here, because I have a lot of these are just, kind of buried in this tweet. But let's go with Yinzer Sports, at Yinzer Sports on Twitter, says, in no particular order, Brock Lesnar, Hulk Hogan, Bret Hart, Kevin Nash, Sid Vicious. Any names on there jump out to you?
Lesnar.
Yeah, he says, I asked him why about Lesnar. He says, Lesnar for not giving two shits about the business, Bret for not doing business before the screw job, Hogan for demanding creative control and deterring others, Sid for thinking he was the chosen one before he did anything, and Nash for thinking they were better than everybody else.
All right, those are sound reasons.
All right, we got another list here submitted by Block101, at Block101. That's Block with two Ks, Blokkk. He says, in no particular order. Okay, ready for this one. Jim Cornette, JBL, Roman Reigns, Bill DeMott, and Ric Flair.
Interesting.
Anything there you want?
The Cornette one's interesting, because you and I, Swerve, have talked about him.
Well, he didn't answer me about Jim Cornette, but if I had to take a guess, it's probably because Jim Cornette shits on the indies and doesn't understand modern wrestling, and so his constant negative feedback only kind of brings down the community around wrestling instead of actually giving it a chance to flourish. But that's just a guess. I don't want to speak for Block.
Yeah, I can see it if that's the case.
So, all right, those are our fan-submitted lists, so it's time to do our number ones. Seth, the number one biggest piece of shit in wrestling history is...
Hear me out, bro. Vince Russo.
Yeah, I won't argue that too much. Yeah, but let's hear Brian. Let's see if Brian comes back. I hope Brian comes back. It's Seth. That's who's the number one because you keep shitting on WCW. Brian.
My number one of all time.
Yes.
Mike Chioda. No.
Man, I missed the funny. I should have done that. I should have said Mike Chioda. That would have been the joke. Brian, why are you better at my humor than I am?
New Jack.
Is it New Jack? Is it really?
Yes.
Oh my God, that's a good one too, man. Brian's list I think might be the best among us. I should have fucking said Mike Chioda, man. I need to talk to you. You are funnier than me. Man, that was good. I'm gonna laugh about that for hours. All right. Number one, Mike Chioda. My number one biggest piece of shit. And see, the real answer is not even close to that build-up, man. Because the number one on my list is Hulk Hogan. And that's not even close to how funny it would have been if I had just said Mike Chioda. Man, Brian.
You just say Mike Chioda and like no discussion. Just keep it going.
My number one biggest piece of... Here, what we're going to do is I'm going to stop the podcast for a second. We'll just have a moment of silence. And then I'll cut it. So that it looks like that was the answer that I gave. Here we go. Ready? The number one biggest piece of shit in wrestling history is Mike Chioda. All right, let's move on. Damn. All right. I think I got to give it to Brian. I think Brian's list was good because we went with sort of Seth and I, we went with kind of answers that compared to his list look cliche, but that dude went with like a murderer and a dude who went spreading around disease and a guy who was genuinely psycho. So I think he might win.
I would say so.
All right. Brian, congratulations on winning the shit list award.
Thank you. So what was your number one again, Seth?
It was Russo, but the thing is, like, I have WCW hate, but WCW was the reason why I started watching wrestling. So there's no.
Okay, no. I'm not going to come after you. I'm just kind of curious if you have anything to say. No, I want to know if you have anything to say about that, considering the name of your show is the SwerveCast.
Yeah, with Vince Russo, I mean, here's the deal. I don't know if it was Vince Russo in WWE that was actually coming up with the ideas that were, or if, you know, Vince was like, well, that's pretty good, but let's do it like this, damn it. I don't know, you know, what was happening there. If it was really just such a transient change of pace between WWE and WCW, or if he was limited or whatnot, or if he just ran out of good ideas or went too far. But Vince Russo as a person is a bit of a piece of shit. I've seen him trash on women's division wrestling all the time, just talking about, like, why would you promote a girl who's not attractive? Like, I've seen him say stuff like that, and then when people come after him, he's like, I guess freedom of speech is dead. So, you know, I get it. And to me, Vince Russo was so irrelevant to my personal wrestling experience because I never watched WCW until it was post-mortem, that I didn't even know who Vince Russo was till I was like 14 or 15 years old. And at that point, you know, it's too late to really appreciate what he did or didn't do retrospectively with the same enthusiasm that you two guys who grew up watching it would have had for Vince Russo and for the guys in charge.
Yeah, well, for me, he was just an on-air character. I wouldn't really learn about all the backstage stuff until years later.
And that's exactly what I'm talking about. But, like, even so, you at least had the experience of watching WCW live and being able to look back on it and going, oh, that's probably why that happened, because this dude's a piece of shit. But for me, I didn't even really watch WCW back until way after it was already dead, something like 2006 or 7. So, you know, yeah, I wouldn't have appreciated it the same way. So that's why I didn't even consider Vince Russo for this list, because what the hell is Vince Russo to me other than just a name, bruh?
I went back and watched some of those shows that he wrote, and they're just really hard to follow. Some of those pay-per-views, it just seems like he's smacking it in your face that it's phony, it's fake, it's staged. Like, you don't have to do that. They don't break in a movie for that. But I think he was, you know, a big proponent of why WCW failed. But honestly, between number one, I almost put a number one as I almost put Jamie Kellner.
That's interesting. You want to explain that one?
He's the one who pretty much pulled the plug on all WCW programming, and that's why we don't have it anymore.
To an extent, yeah, anyway.
I mean, that's a big part of it, but
yeah.
So
you don't have the platform, you can't exist, you know? So
exactly.
I understand where you're coming from. All right. Well, Wrestling Shit List was brought to you by Elite City Gaming. Don't forget you can subscribe to Elite City Gaming on Twitch and YouTube right now.